Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Just a few things before we get started tonight. You just probably watched the preview, the promo for the conference coming up next May. Tickets are available. You can find all that information at journeytotruth.online. We would love to see you out there. This is our last year in Grafton at the Pure Marquette Lodge, and then we're going to move on to a new location. So if you've been wanting to come to Grafton, I recommend grabbing a ticket and coming hang out with us. It's a lot of fun. And we have a promo code going for Hopewell Farm CBD. It's amazing CBD if you're looking to try something new. They have good topical ointment too, all ethically sourced. And Nancy and Eric are just wonderful souls, and it's their product. And we affiliated with them a few years ago, and they have a 15% discount on all their products with promo code JTT. Thanks, and that link is in the description as well. And without wasting any more time, we're going to just dive straight in tonight. We are joined once again by our friend Rebecca Rose. She's been on our show a number of times. She actually spoke at our very first Secret Space conference, actually the shirt that I'm wearing now,
Yeah.
in mem
Oh,
in,
yeah.
in
Yeah.
memory of that. And it was a pretty big moment for Journey to Truth. That was our first conference, and it was really a big stepping stone into a much bigger arena for what we're doing. So it was really cool to have Rebecca a part of that. And we realize now that's been years ago at this point, and we have a lot of new followers now and a whole new audience. We're branching out over onto X and other platforms. So what we're gonna do is kind of give Rebecca a chance to give us her like elevator pitch for what happened to her as far as, being abducted into these programs. And I'll have some questions along the way, but there's a lot of people who might not know your story, Rebecca. And it's an incredible story. We can't cover it all in an hour and a half. I realize that, but we'll do our best to get into some of the newer stuff that's more current, that's actually, coming through right now. So welcome to the show.
I am happy to be back with you. And yeah, I like seeing your t-shirt from a couple years back. I didn't think to wear mine. Yeah. Yeah. So when you said give your spiel or the elevator pitch, and I was like, hey, you guys, do you have a few hours? I mean, where do we dive
Yeah.
in?
How
So I'll do
detailed do
my
you want to get
best.
here? Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Do my best. And is the audience also able to ask questions out there
Yeah, they
Oh yeah.
are.
Oh yeah.
too?
We got a live
Well, just
chat going.
I want to just say hi to new people who maybe haven't met me, or or maybe just now diving into the SSP material. Thank you for your open minds. Some of these stories are really mind blowing, and they do take a quantum perspective to kind of metabolize. We can't necessarily always look at these things from a 3D mindset, and they really demand us to open our awareness of like the liminal qualities of space and time, which become somewhat irrelevant when we're talking about things like the SSP. So let me scroll back in. In my interviews and these things, I always say, I feel like it's been a hard journey because my family was so embedded with what happened to me and being abducted into the programs. Both my brother and I were taken into the SSP. Um, and this is back, I'm going to date myself. I mean, I was born in 72. I'm now 52 years old. My father worked, this will tell you a lot. My father worked for the deep state, Lockheed Martin, the Navy. He worked with naval intelligence at a very high level above top secret. And he did that work for decades between Navy, NASA, CIA, and so on. So he was a mastermind and an engineer. And it was through the auspices of that they got their hands on me. I also had some darker stuff going on in my mother's bloodline. Mother being German through and through, not born in Germany, but her ancestry on both sides was German. And I think sometimes that's longed for in the programs, particularly serving for Nachtwaffen and Darkfleet, which I was taken into when I was about 4. But just to like the family story seems a little bit important because it gives context to why I was taken. Both my brother and I had, I would say, maybe greater than average psychic ability that was already seeming to be just part of the inheritance. It came down through my father's line. He had quite a lot of intuitive capacity as well. Um, so where do I go from there? Yeah,
So,
yeah,
well,
go ahead.
let me ask you a question. So, with your father being involved, you said it was through that you became involved. What
Yeah.
did that look like? Him signing you
Right,
over?
right, right. So, God, there's so
Right. How
many
did
to the story. So I'm going to poke the memory retrieval place because a lot of people are going to say, how do you remember all this stuff? How do you know all this stuff? How do you, for me, things come through meditation. And anytime we're changing our brainwave state, whether it's hypnosis, which I've not used, regression therapy or so, or hypnosis, excuse me, meditation, which has been my ally in getting memories back. And also the float tank, which I use on a regular basis, because whenever we're dropping down beneath the beta brainwave state into alpha and theta, we have access to other areas of consciousness, right? That we can't tap into in ordinary mind. So that's where I've gotten a lot of this. To your point, though, I was given a vision several years ago, and this came days and days and days upon days. The same vision over and over. My father sitting in a room with a couple of grays, some Navy guys, and guys in suits. They're pushing papers at him and saying, "This is for the betterment of humanity." And I know he's signing papers for me. I also know he was mind controlled to some extent. And from the things he said on his deathbed, which is when, I started to get a lot of memories in the year and a half before he died in 2020. And in the year following that was this huge data dump of information. So, yeah, I believe he was given distorted information in order to sign myself and likely my brother off into, programs that who knows what they really told him.
And this
Yeah.
was before you were born?
This, I think, I don't know exactly the timeline. It was when I was very small or, beforehand. And I've said before, too, that I think both of my parents were breeders for kids in the programs. My parents met in the military, and both my parents were in the military. So, my mom and dad had nothing in common, right? Like nothing except for they made a good match to create MILAB kids.
Mm.
I mean, that's my take on it. I don't mean to be disrespectful to my mom and dad. They brought me here to do big work. So, but I do think that they were kind of, we have a soul's journey and a soul's bigger picture, which is a lot of how I've made meaning in my story that's allowed it to um, land in a way that's not quite so much in like, I'm a victim to all this stuff. Like I get the bigger part of my soul's journey, and I signed up for a lot of this. So I picked my parents, I picked my astrology. You know, my parents probably picked their journeys too on some level. So just a little nugget around that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you were brought in and just you don't have we don't have to go into all the
Yeah.
details, but
Yeah.
you served in the secret space program for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
And you did a tour and then you were brought back and you slowly got those memories throughout your life.
Yeah. So when I was 4, I started being taken let's say I went to the big 20 and back, thing when I was 9, right before I turned 10 in 1982 in the fall. It was like September 82. I was taken out to that, and we can go into all of that. But just to say, there was a years in which I was also being taken out by the Draco to the moon and working in an engineering lab, genetics engineering lab for the Germans, which was also connected to the Dulce base, which I feel like now is a bit defunct in a really good and optimistic, way that I say that. But I was handled in that case by the Draco, the Germans, and at the facility on the moon, there's also a lot of grays, little grays, kind of drone grays, and the Draco were the main ones interacting with me, and I was being trained psychically and telekinetically to basically gather data from beings that they had in the labs, to kind of take a photographic, or like we could say a screenshot of DNA, and kind of file things and kind of get used to working with Grays and Draco, and that they owned me in a sense. I felt like the Draco owned me. And that all was sort of a preamble to what would come later in the larger, like 20 and back, that happened down the road in 82.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, I titled this episode Uncovering Memories from Parallel Lives because essentially that's what this is. You said it takes a quantum understanding to really discuss the secret space program, to wrap your head around it. And that would rely on you to understand that parallel universes, parallel worlds, parallel realities exist. And they have technology that doesn't make sense to the everyday normal person based on the
Well,
physics that we're given. It's not supposed to exist. But
no.
through through years of whistleblower and declassified documents, and I mean, and just so many corroborating data points, it's pretty clear. A picture has been painted that technologies exist that allow us to time travel, open a portal in your bedroom, remove you, bring you into a program in another dimension, essentially another timeline, even just another time in this dimension. I mean, the possibilities are endless. It all
Yeah.
sounds like it's from a sci-fi movie, but it happens. So,
It's a
Mhm.
can you
reality.
maybe, what'd you say, Aaron?
But it's a reality, and it's just only because it's been hidden from us, and our paradigm is based on a very lower level of technology. Just like if you traveled back 300 years and showed them an iPhone, they think it's magic. Well, this stuff
Right,
seems like magic to us just because we're not used to it. But
right.
it's
Yeah, yeah,
doesn't mean it's
that's
not
a
real,
yeah, well said, Aaron. Yeah.
right?
So, yeah.
So maybe you could help explain this, your perspective on what is actually going on here and how this is occurring, and where you're literally taken into another life where you, Rebecca, now is living simultaneous to the Rebecca that is in the programs.
Yeah, and this is a tricky one. This is a tricky one. It's slippery to me now even as long as many years as I've been grappling with all of this, right? And I've known about it. I feel like I wasn't gone very long because you kind of are taken out. Like I remember being taken out that night in '82 and like looking back at as if it was being, sucked out of the side of the house and not being able to move. I was paralyzed. And looking back at the kitchen windows that were on and the lights that were on in the window and knowing it wasn't going to go good, but point being that it's almost like that part happened in slow motion, but then you're back in your bed at some point and it's almost like 10 minutes went by and nothing, so it's really hard to dial that in. Like I think that stops a lot of people from pursuing memories because it's like it's not real and this can't happen. And you know what, that's the magic of how they've been getting away with this for so very long because people will just dismiss it. If you have some errant memory of, a big reptilian thing and like, you know, ETs in cages and like, all this weird stuff, spaceships, you're going to be like, oh, whatever, some sci-fi thing. I don't know. I had a dream. So,
Hmm.
Right.
um, yeah, I mean, I experience it as in a couple different ways. I guess my 3D mind experience is that I went sideways in time, like for, maybe, like I said, like let's use hypothetically 10 minutes and came back, but it was more like 20 or 30 years because the farther off we get from Earth's gravity field, the less time matters, in our earthly linear reality. That's all gone. That's nothing.
Right.
So, when I was taken out to the Kuiper Belt later, again, I was owned by the Draco. This was late in my service, and I was a pilot on patrol outside of Planet X, which was a huge planet, again in the Kuiper Belt. Like that's so far removed from Earth. I mean, it's very edge of solar system. If you think about how long it would actually even take to get there, let alone be there. What's time doing way out there? Like, is that even still happening? So if anybody's still following this, thank you. I know it's a kind of a mind fuck, excuse my language, but that's the reality. I mean, I think time and the way we metabolize it mentally is more of a construct than it's an actual reality. It's almost
Right.
like time becomes a
Right.
fiction. So I don't know if I've done that justice at all. I know it's cloned many times, and that can explain some things too. I don't really feel like I'm here in a clone body now, but I know I died a number of times. They always seem to have, I was a super soldier, I was taken in '82 down to underground base, Great Lakes Naval Station, north of Chicago. I was twinned with, that's a whole long story. Not all of it very bright, but I was twinned with a man a boy at the time who I would, be trained on in Mars. And we would do psychic recon together and be trained as super soldiers. We would live and fight and die together. In the end, he would kill me. That's part of the programming. But those are that we were cloned many times and sent into battle, some of which was virtual and then some of which was real. We were trained in a lot of different ways. I was also trained as a pilot. So this is over many, many years. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that Great Lakes Naval Station, that's one of the bases that shows up a lot in testimonies, and it's even mentioned
Does
in the.
it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, yeah, I
Yeah.
guess more. more now than maybe earlier, but I've seen it come up. It's mentioned in the Sands of Time series where they were, developing time travel tech, and that's
Hey,
where
okay, I have never heard of this, and I thank you for corroborating. I don't listen to a lot of stuff ever, and I'm like, God, I've never heard of anybody being taken there, but that's what I remember for me. So,
Well, there
also
you go. That's corroboration right there.
also Michael Relf, the original guy,
Mhm.
he came out with his
oh,
testimony. He came out
really?
with his testimony in the year 2000, the Mars records, the pediatric.
Actually,
So, okay, yeah, I'm
his
familiar
book
with
his
books,
book
but
was
I'm not. Yeah.
his
What,
book
Aaron?
was the year 2000. He actually came out in like 97 or 8, I think, originally. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
but like in a bigger way, he came out in 2000.
So
So he was
his
OG, yeah.
test his testimony involves the naval base in the Great Lakes, where
Mhm.
he claims there is a jump room to Mars.
All right. Well,
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
fuck yeah, you have it. I never knew before just this minute that that was there.
Yeah,
So,
there you
yeah,
go.
yay.
yeah,
Um, True enough.
and that's also allegedly where they were doing the early test piloting for the Black Triangle craft. Whenever we first reverse engineered that, they would have to actually land over water because whenever they land, it would create this effect that would actually be like they would destroy the land. So they would land over the lake, and that's what, you heard the term white squall. If it's like this anomalous storm that comes out of nowhere over
Mhm.
lakes, it's because these TR3Bs are landing over the lake, and when they do, it creates this essentially this tsunami, like this water like tornado thing, and they call it a white squall, but it's actually from a cloaked ship landing and over water, and that's what that's from. But they do that in the Great Lakes area because they're actually parked at that base. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, far out. Thank you for mentioning
yeah.
that. Helps me out a little bit. Um,
Oh,
gosh.
yeah, so let's go into I know we will be here all day going through the original testimony. Is there anything else that happened along that journey that you think people should know about before we get into some of the current stuff?
I guess I could give a little timeline on Mars, maybe so what was because I'm hearing people going like what happened? You were in the naval station and you jump room to Mars and then what? And you're 9 years
Right,
old. Like did they just stick you into battle? What goes on? I mean, you've got to have some
right.
questions about this. Like I
Right.
sure would. So the purpose of the twinning is so that you have some kind of there's a few purposes to that you know that you're going to be invested in the outcome of a situation in which you love someone. We were like family and friends and bonded in such a tight way. I was with my twin Dean that it created a totally different thing than if I was just out there by myself. Um, so we were trained in really rudimentary ways, like building upon the training that I had with the Draco, to use telekinesis to operate craft, so to speak. I mean, that was a long, kind of rigorous training. They're very precise in their training. At this point, I was not owned by the Germans. I mostly remember American military um, in this case. So I ended up being, we were patrolling bases on Mars, which was sort of boring, but there was a progression from, learning to operate craft with the mind to being trained as foot soldiers and wearing heavily weaponized, high, super advanced technology suits that were basically conscious and had their own consciousness and could be cloaked and all these things. Um, and then I was trained as a pilot. So there's a lot there. We had a lot of interaction with the mantis beings on Mars at the time. And also I had a lot of interactions with the indigenous reptilians there. There was a time in which I crashed on patrol and they picked me up. One of their groups picked me up and I lived underground with them for a while. And they were a pretty spiritual race, but didn't have a lot of technology in the manner that we would think of as far as craft and um, I don't remember them even having telepathy, but I have some good memories and some mixed memories of them, but a lot of kind of there's some boring memories, like I said, just being on patrol, had some interactions with native spiders there. At one point I was killed by one of those spiders. Um, little little error with my technology in which I couldn't cloak myself and kind of um, my company disappeared. We were on a patrol and there's 7 of us, and Yeah, they all seem to vaporize, and I didn't. I had some technical problem. Probably pilot error. But anyway, I
Hmm.
remember expiring. Like my consciousness didn't exactly know where to go. So yeah, there's a lot. I feel like Mars was like this place I was just at over and over again, or forever. Like, I'm never gonna leave Mars. I mean, eventually I did. They sold me to the Draco. There's a huge barter. If they invest so much in creating a weaponized asset, aka super soldier, there's a lot of years, a lot of energy, a lot of chemical enhancements, a lot of biological enhancements, technological enhancements, and so on that go on. It's a very prized asset. So if they can sell you, not like selling a state secret, but sell a facsimile of you to somebody who has something else that they want, there's a huge galactic slave trade. So
Right. And
that's a piece of that.
and a lot of times they really do feel like they own you because
Mhm.
and they
Oh yeah.
actually have this weird trauma bond even with their own slave because they've invested so much time
Yeah.
into creating them into this perfect soldier, right? So it's really interesting, when we start breaking down all these testimonies and taking it seriously, and because I really do think that this stuff comes from somewhere. It's not just imagination, right? And then at this point it's just got to become part of the conversation more and more moving forward because once we learn about, once they finally tell us the truth about extraterrestrials and UFOs, then we're going to get into, inevitably dimensional shift technology. And then we're
Yeah.
talking about parallel realities. Then we're talking
Mhm.
about time travel. Then eventually people are going to catch up and realize that, the stuff we've been talking about this whole time, it actually, there's science for it now.
Yeah.
And, and, so I just think it's important that people to understand that, as hard as this stuff is to wrap your head around sometimes, just consider it. Just, you don't have to marry yourself to any of these ideas,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah. And it took me a while. Like, I think I dismissed this. When it first started coming in, like, I had some memories of things that I just sort of didn't know where to place from early life. And then when it really started, like, it was like day after day, I was receiving big data dumps. Like I said, when my dad was in the dying process. And I like didn't really have a frame of reference for this. Like, what is this? I don't know what this is, and I would prefer it to go away.
mhm,
This
Yeah.
would be my preference.
right.
Um, and it just keeps coming. So my reality had to shift a lot. And I think that's true of a lot of people who have been through the programs. Like, how is this even possible? What does that make? What meaning do I make of my life now if this is real? Well, it's gonna flop, it's really gonna warp your own the perception of reality that we've all been conditioned to believe is real.
Hmm.
So, and
Right.
I think, the more people coming forward, the better, because it's going to hasten that shift that we need, that quantum leap into, like, yeah, time travel is real and all the rest. So I was
Right.
also, before I was taken to the 20 and back, I was also taken to Montauk. That was by an extended family member, my father's best friend, who was working as well for naval intelligence. And so I was used in time experiments before, all the Mars stuff happened. So,
Right.
and I grew up in that sort of area of the world as well. So um, it was really, there's a lot of memory from there. Not of it, much of it is too pretty, but I did survive.
Yeah.
And again, I think it was part of the soul plan, to be involved with all of this. So, how do you come? I think the purpose of the journey for me was to, and I've said this before, you probably heard me say it, but to go down into the belly of the beast, discover how they're operating, and be part of the undoing, or we could say disclosure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I absolutely believe that's the case. Like people are, why would you sign up for this? Well, maybe it's because like you can't sit here and talk. You can do as much reading as you want, but unless you've experienced it, you'll never fully understand it or grasp it. So
Yeah.
then you now become part of that disclosure process and become a whistleblower essentially, even though the program you're blowing the whistle on isn't even supposed to exist, Uh,
Right.
but
Well, um, mm,
Almost like you're being used as a spy, kind of in a way, because it reminds me of like Nira Isley,
yeah.
her testimony. She there's a portion of it where I can't remember exactly the details, but basically her like Lyran star family was
Yes.
like using her to like monitor everything through her,
Exactly. And
like
this
find
happened
out
to
what's going
me.
on.
Yeah,
So that's
exactly.
kind of like what I think, same thing
Mhm.
with you and with a lot of these SSP. experiences.
Yeah, so if we get back into the big picture, like what was there was another lighter piece of this in which to this day, and even more so as time goes on, I experienced myself on a what I call the Light Alliance ship. It's a Syrian mothership. It's organic, polymorphous, alive, living craft. It's actually Galactic Confederation. I don't like to use a lot of fancy terms. I'm very wary of all of that jargon and what goes on with it, and how it's co-opted. But
Yeah,
but
right.
I had yeah, you read me. Yeah, I've had a whole thing, coming down from that ship. I'll be incarnated. We were very interested in the galactic slave trade, and I, basically said, I'll go down and check this out. And I have a mate on that ship that I'm in contact with, and there's like a family bond with them that I really treasure. My family bond in this reality has not been so great, so I'm grateful for that. But it gives a lot of perspective, like you're saying with Niera, very, very similar. So like I understand so much more than if I only remembered like, being, really jacked up on amphetamines and like being put into, almost like a simulation program to fight when they're training me on Mars, like that would be really disturbing, right? Like I'm being trained to kill. But there's a proof to this. Like there's a method, method to the madness. There's a reason why all this is happening. So, and I can be proud of that now, or I can be, I don't know, pride is the word, but like I can be happy with the outcome. I came down to do something and maybe I'll make a contribution and affect something favorably. I hope,
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I think ultimately these testimonies as well, they're going to go a long way into the future. I know I kind of said that before, but even me, I started just rewatching some of our old interviews, interviewing the people, the whistleblowers, SSP whistleblowers for the first time. And I'm hearing a whole different thing now because I understand it so much better. And I'm like, wow, I missed so much the first time around. It just lands differently. And
yeah,
I'm like,
Yeah.
this is actually so much more relevant now today than it was then. Not just because I had a lack of understanding then, but because reality is shifting. We are literally moving into new territory, uncharted territory now. And I'm just like, I'm so glad we have this stuff documented because we can use this stuff and this like and cycle these old interviews and this information to affect the collective consciousness. And that's kind of
yeah,
why I wanted to bring you back and just like keep this alive. Keep it
yeah.
alive.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, like we're all those who are called to, bring this publicly, whether we're whistleblowers or people like you hosting, maybe you're both those things, like we have something to do and everybody has a place to plug in, even the people who are in the audience now who may be like, whoa, what is this? And I said this at the conference, I remember this speaking to your audience in Grafton, like, the people who think, well, what am I doing for disclosure? Your open mind is helping shift the vibration of this planet.
Yes.
Yeah,
Your
yeah. Just
you,
just
your
j-
your energy, your open mind, your actions, your word, everything is
Mhm.
influencing everything around you and the planet itself. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, it's massive. So I want to thank everybody out there who maybe is being exposed to this kind of information, maybe for the first time or
right.
newer. Yeah.
So, okay, I would say whenever you retrieve memories, or whenever that version of you expires in the programs, a fragment of your soul rehomes, right? And I think once that happens, like more memories come back and more understanding comes back. And it's not even like just a mental understanding, but it's like this inner knowing. And you resonate with information when you hear it. The reason you're resonating with something is because part of you already knows, and it's just remembering. It's
Yeah.
that remembrance frequency. So when people resonate with this information, they're remember part of their soul knows that it's happening, right? But when we're talking about these programs, we're talking about soul splitting technology and soul
Oh, first.
fragmenting.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, maybe you can like kind of explain
Mhm.
it what it's been like to retrieve those soul fragments and like feel like slowly become whole again.
Oh, wow. Yeah, what does that feel like? It's a work in progress, Tyler.
Right.
It's a work in progress. Um, I could say, looking at the scope of my testimony, like when I first made, I have a little YouTube channel. I only have 5,000 subs over there, but when you look at my first video that I made in the Bringing Light to the Darkness series, which is now 20 episodes in, that was back in 2020, and like you can see such a massive change in me from the first video, in which I for sure thought somebody from the deep state was going to come and get me. They were going to kill me, and something terrible was going to happen. I was like sweating, I was crying, I was a fucking mess on that video. It's still up. You guys can go check it out. But to where I am at now is like people are like, "Wow, you've really changed." I'm like, that's the power of truth, and when you speak it, look out. It's changed my life so much for the better. So I would say like that's like a pragmatic or practical aspect of what's putting it in like linear 3D terms of what that looks like. This past year I've had the death of two handlers, and I'm still sitting with that. My godfather died this fall. He was the one who trafficked me to Montauk and other events for the deep state in which child pornography was being made. So again, part of the soul plan, but he passed away in September. And then my uncle, my mother's brother, German side of the family, who was a black magician, ritual abuse there, reptilian bloodline stuff. He died in a little earlier in the year. And I'm still sitting with that because I think that also brings back maybe to use your language pieces of soul, or at least for me, it's like there's this mix of like relief and a bit of numbness. Like I'm waiting for some big data dump and I don't want it. I just don't want it in a way. So I think something shakes out when the moving pieces of your puzzle start to really realign or shift, or in this case, the death of people goes on.
Right. Yeah, and you mentioned bloodline a few times, and your family seems to be very deep rooted into all of this stuff. And so, what the beautiful thing about what you're doing now and why this time is so important is because you're not just healing this for you, it's the entire bloodline that you have the opportunity to heal and
Yeah,
I guess bring those fragments back home, and the next generation can be liberated of this stuff, right? So I think it's an important time
absolutely.
for that reason as well.
Well, and I see this in client sessions too, when one person in the family decides to make the journey and really become authentic and kind of do their shadow work and do, whatever. They're showing up for the journey of becoming who they came here to be. It travels backwards in time as well as forwards. So I've noticed things shifting with my mom a little bit, and not because we've done any work on anything. My mother had DID, as a result of what happened to her with her dad. And anyway, it's sort of this magic happens when we show up to the table of our own life. We look at the banquet and we say, "Yes, I'm here."
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So here, where you are now, were you going to say something else?
Oh, there's tons.
Oh,
No, go ahead.
oh. So, Aaron, did you have anything to say before we
No,
move on
no,
to
no, not right now.
so the current, you mentioned before we went on air that you had some current stuff that you would like to talk about, and what this looks like for you now. Did you want to get into some of that?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. It's like it's kind of going into, yeah. Let me start because we're riffing on consciousness and the soul. So when I was on Mars, this is a beautiful segue. So remember I chatted about those little indigenous reptilians on Mars.
Hmm.
Um, I was out on patrol and I crashed. And for years in memory retrieval, I knew that I had been shot down. I felt that I had, but I didn't know why. And this isn't 100% new, but it's a preamble to the new. So just bear with me. It was relevant to our theme, I think, tonight. I had gotten in the middle of a kind of a turf war with these, we could say, thugs on Mars. They were running an illicit slave trade operation, illegal contraband. What was the contraband? Traffic in souls, traffic in consciousness. It was actually run by the Draco remotely. They had co-opted the bodies of some of these the little reptilians that I'm talking about, the indigenous ones, and had the Draco consciousness within him. And I was surrounded on patrol. They had disabled my technology in my head, in my body, and simultaneously, of course, with the ship that I was piloting. So I was starting to go down, and they were shooting at me, and they said, you know, you can't be here. There was this whole, you know, it was a shoot. I'd made a video about it. It's called Shoot on Mars, Contraband, a Crime Syndicate, and the Light Alliance Intervention. Anyway, trafficking in souls on Mars was not something I knew about, but this was intense. It was a big, big operation. It was feeding the Draco. It was highly illicit and illegal, and again, part of the galactic slave trade. Well, when I crash, I'm left alone, and that has to do with my family on the light ship because they were going to get my soul. And I'm taken into the underground by a group of, you know, a subgroup of this race, the indigenous reptilians. I have very good memories with them, largely. Like, it's the first place in the programs that I remember being treated as like family, or we were eating in a underground, you know, in a circle, a very kind of indigenous sort of feeling. And I felt like they welcomed me and treated me with some amount of respect there. They had a whole underground oasis because they were working they were working spiritually with the energies of Mars. Like Earth, the living consciousness of the planet it's alive. You can communicate with it. You can learn to create things using that consciousness when you're aligned in a certain direction. That's about the only technology that they had. They didn't, like I said, have craft or weapons that we usually think about with ETs. Now, getting to the newer information, I knew that they had cannibalized me for parts. Like, if that's the language that I always used, was my memory there kind of goes dark. I know they had a council meeting and they were deciding, what do we do with her? We've never seen anything like her before. They had been very isolated and their genes were regressed because they had been so isolated from a cataclysm on Mars. I'm not sure if that was a nuclear explosion or something else. A small group, maybe 30 of them, that were left, and they were not doing well with reproduction. And recently, yeah, there's new meaning to how they cannibalize me for parts, whether for technology or biology. I have a habit of going into a float tank a few nights a week and really resting in space because you're weightless and naked in the water. It's dark and it's beautiful. It brings me back to space as close as I can get in the physical form here on Earth. And my brainwave state changes so much that I can have access to things that I don't normally have access to. And I realized that the little reptilian guy that I've been seeing since November 15th, and he showed up in meditation on my right side, and he was playing with the stones and crystals at my altar in the dark there with the salt lamp. I saw him, and then a week later, I'm in the tank, and I floated over onto my side, and I started sobbing like the biggest, most horrible, like wailing, like from deep within my soul. And I knew he was my child from Mars with this group. So they had used my eggs rather than my DNA. So they had found a way to progress their race, so to speak, using again, not just the DNA, but my own, you know, female biology, which was shocking to me. Like when the kid showed up, I was like, who's the kid? I don't need this. I don't know who he is. He's kind of annoying. He's really cute, but like, I don't need, who are you? He kept day after day after day that whole week before I realized he was my son. You know, he's showing up and he's like, need something from me. What the fuck do you need? Get out of here. You know, I was really kind of, I'm pretty warm and sweet, right? But like, I was losing that aspect with the child, and I was asking my guys, like, what is this? What does he need from me? I don't have room for a child in my life. I'm busy. And so that night in the float tank, everything changed when I was like, wow, far out. Like you know, it's just the things you're going along, and suddenly there's a drop, you know, a bomb dropped. You know, like when I first started remembering Dean, my twin in the programs, I had no idea that was there, and how it came through was just so, it's a sudden in a way. It's like, so it's sort of the weaponization of motherhood. Even though, again, I have pretty good memories of that race. At some point, because let's say, incubation wasn't going very well, both the child and I were going to die. my family on the Light Alliance ship, Confederation, the Syrian light ship, brought me up to the pods with the kid and helped save us. And I understand from Tyrion, my mate on the ship, that it was in part to help save that race. If we look again, let's get the wide angle lens out, because they were dying out. And, you know, the segue into a bigger picture perspective on our solar system. If one planet is degrading, in our case, we would say Earth, the rest of the solar system is affected by that. So if one planet is getting co-opted in its consciousness, the planet itself, or the races that live upon it, humans or otherwise, anywhere in the solar system itself is lockstep together through the planetary sphere. If one planet is kind of going down the tubes, it's not going to help the others. So we want to keep them kind of equilibrated. And I think that's why, again, from a soul perspective, maybe this was allowed to happen. That's how I understand it at the moment. Although I'm still retrieving new information. This is all in the past few weeks that this occurred.
Yeah. So this reminds me of a mushroom trip that I had. And I've talked about this a few times, but I realized I was able to access the Akashic records at some point whenever I was on this journey.
Yeah,
And this was years ago when I was like deep into researching the SSP. So first thing I wanted to ask, I said, show me the SSP, like the breakaway civilizations, the infrastructure, all of it.
yeah.
And instead of that, it showed me this black cloud that encompassed the earth, and then it flashed the word cancer. And it said anything birthed in secrecy is not of the light. And, because you're always getting this zoomed out perspective whenever you're in those higher frequencies, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, but it is real. And, I said, well, how can it all be cancer? Because from what I understand, there's a cleanup effort occurring. And it said they're cleaning up their own mess. The damage is already done. Anything birthed in secrecy is not of the light. And they liken it, they use the example of like a cheating spouse trying to fix their marriage. It's their own mess that they're trying to patch up. So to add to your point, as far as like it's in the benefit of all of the planets in the solar system and the galaxy, because everything has been damaged, affected on some level. So it's like, okay, we can just like cast these people aside, or we can start work with them and healing together and bringing in these groups that essentially we might have been warring with at one point, but it's been so convoluted that it's time to somehow work together in some capacity and fix this mess that we've all made collectively.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Spot on. It's
Right.
really true. Like it has broadened my perspective a lot about the nature of planetary consciousness, not just Earth, but all the information I've gathered over time around the consciousness of Mars, which this group was wed to, spiritually very in tune with, but all of the others too. So we need to kind of, I think I use the word equilibrate, bring things back into balance. And a lot of times, these groups like the Confederation will be perhaps rightly criticized from a 3D perspective, like why aren't they doing boots on the ground work here on Earth? But sometimes their interventions look like this, so it's not always intelligible in quick, simple ways by the 3D mind. You got to look into sort of like, oh my God, there's so much to this. We only see like the proverbial tip of the iceberg, right? So
Right.
not what
Right.
happened.
So, what do you think this Federation intervention would look like? How would it manifest right now in our current realities? We see all these drone sightings and all this stuff, and
Oh, yeah,
a lot of people are claiming it is like Federation showing themselves. And I mean, there's no shortage of theories, right? So,
yeah.
what would, in your opinion, a Federation intervention look like? Because it probably wouldn't be overt. We're talking about prime directive and laws of non-interference, but there
Yeah.
are workarounds. What do you think is going on there?
The answer that comes there is that the more people elevate their consciousness, the more they can intervene because it's shifting the equation. If our consciousness is kept at a very kind of dull and low state, um, I'm just receiving this psychically now that they have a more of a challenge to intervene in direct ways, and their means continue to be more indirect, which can be extremely effective. So like it's a plug again to say that everything locksteps with each other. Like our consciousness, it's not just about, and I know you guys know this, and the audience probably knows this. Like it's not just about, you know, the ETs coming in and doing the cleanup. It's like we're, you know, I'm always plugging meditation. Like there's got to be a way that we're stepping more fully into our autonomy, our authenticity, our inheritance, which comes from great divinity, great creation. Yeah. So let me think more about this question too. And there's also, I would say, within the umbrella of these different groups, helping humanity, they can have different agendas. You know, there's groups that are operating at a more, you know, maybe lower 4D and more of a 5D and above. They're going to have a different consciousness about this too. So I feel like things when I look at you know, kind of what's going on, boots on the ground here, like things like the hearings in DC, you know, there is some benevolent outcome inside of that. I think there's things that are shifting. But it's I think it's kind of wed to human consciousness in how they're able to show up given, like you said, the constraints of like prime directives and what we're cultivating ourselves here on the planet to.
Yeah.
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 And some groups will that we will, you know, push the edge, breach the boundary and show up in craft and do, you know, I've been called to, I've spent 25 years as a professional studio artist before I got into, you know, my psychic stuff turning on and working one-on-one with people to offer service. But I've been shown a series of paintings. I haven't been painting at the easel. I'm sitting in my studio in my office and I've got a big ET on the easel, but I haven't been called to do much art, but there's these paintings coming in and they're craft ET ships on a clear blue sky, indicating that there's something coming through in broad daylight. And I'm like, okay, is that like precognitive? Like what's happening? Do I paint the ships and then they come? I don't know. But I think there is more, what I would say my experience, what I know is that there's more a lot more going on behind the scenes right now and always has been than we realize.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say something real quick.
Yeah, please.
So you know, like you said it perfectly. There's a lot more going on than our 3D brains can really comprehend. And you really got to think very multidimensionally, multi-layered to really even have a grasp at the concept of like what's going on, in my opinion, because I mean, you were talking earlier about how time is really not what we think it is. It's just kind of like an experience we're having, but like there's beings that exist basically outside of time, or time travel is just like us walking, you know. It's like just it's so normal to them. And you know, there's lots of information that out there that our solar system, but particularly even our planet at this point in time is kind of the seed that like on a more negative timeline, it turned into something very, very bad that spread out through the galaxy and maybe even through the whole universe, right? And like Alex Collier talks about that, and I've heard others as well, that that's the intel, the information they were given is many, many years and what we would perceive as the future, this enslavement and this yeah, for lack of a better word, this enslavement kind of spread throughout the universe, or
Yeah.
particularly our galaxy and then to the universe. And they went back, they were able to go back in time and pinpoint where it started, and it was this planet. It was our solar system, and then particularly our planet at this point in time right now. Like
Mhm.
or let's just say, you know, the last
And
century up to now, like is, you know, as we've seen what's gone on with the development of the secret space programs and, you know, all
Yeah.
the UFO stuff and all the stuff with the Nazis and the, you know, all the stuff we know. It's like, oh yeah, well there you go. Like that was kind of like the seed. And then on a different timeline, which is really like all timelines are existing simultaneously because all time is simultaneously. But the timeline now we're going to experience, because they've kind of like, from what we perceive, come from the future back in time to kind of like help. And it's not just helping us, it's helping all, you know, them as well, and all these other civilizations, kind of like when they stop when they mitigate nukes and nuclear bases and stuff.
Yeah.
They're doing that not just to help us, they're doing that to help them
The,
and other beings in other
the whole,
dimensions, and because it
the
affects
whole
all of that, right?
It's not just
So
about us. So, and that's kind
right.
of the
So we're
like,
connected to many other, it's kind of like all connected in a way, right?
Right.
yes, absolutely. Thank you for clarifying that in really, yeah, beautiful language, that it's not just about us.
Because a lot of people
Maybe,
are like, well, why would they care about us? Why would they help us? They're not, it's like they can't, it's like, well, you got to think of it in that way. It's not just, we're all connected. So helping us is helping them.
Right.
yeah.
Helping others.
Yeah, are we the only planet ever that it's got its weapons are pointed at itself. We got all these
Right.
weapon systems and all these, things in the sky that are just pointing at their own planet. What?
Right. They're like,
Yeah.
man, we really got to start
Yeah, there's
helping
something
them to
about
raise their
that.
consciousness and like stop these Draco and these negative beings from totally enslaving, so they're helping. And I'm sure that, there's been a cleanup elsewhere that's kind of like seemed like it's gone on first, and now this is kind of the last area to be cleaned up, is what it seems like. And
Right.
that's what's happening now.
And I would say too, like, remember that these other races, some of them are really on a journey of their own. If they're still locked in
Right.
four, there could be, if they're not advanced to the point of like being in a unity field of consciousness, then they're making their own journey, and maybe they're making,
Right.
maybe they're having little fuck ups in meetings and like, oh, should we go left or right? Like, what do we do? We haven't been here before, or have we?
Right.
um, so I kind of view it with a little bit of generosity. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, and it's important. Yeah, it's a great point to remember. Like everybody is at their own, like it's just like a flower. Like we're all going to blossom, but everybody's at their own stage of development. And we all, we're in either on our way into the game or on our way out, but it doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. It's part of the soul's evolution.
Mhm.
And the dark is always serving the light. We could really zoom out if we want, but it's
Yeah.
it is a beautiful
Right.
time. And like Aaron mentioned, like it's all happening now. Well, now could be a span, in the bigger picture, now could be a span of 500 years or 5,000 years.
Right.
It's so true. It's so
And the
true.
grand scale, what is
Yeah.
1,000 years is like nothing,
How
right?
Right.
how is our audience doing at this point? Are they like
Yeah,
that?
they're
You
doing
guys,
great. So if
mine's
does anybody in the audience have any questions for Rebecca? If you do, just hop in the chat, put question in all caps in front of your comment, and we will take a few questions. We have about I think she has about 30 minutes more she can hang out with us.
I got time. We raced through a lot of things, and there's so many pieces of the story that are probably. I think we did well enough, given just like our one show today. So, yeah, there's so much here. There's so much here, and I'm wondering what
right.
resonates for people, or maybe they draw parallels from. At the end of the day, it's all drawing on the wellspring of related, relevant human experience. Because what do you notice when I'm talking about my newest memory? It's emotional. What unites us as humans, like our struggle, our vulnerability, our passion, our desires, our unrequited destinations, and these things. There's something that unites us all, regardless of what we've been through or not.
Right, right.
Right.
So we have a couple questions. I don't know if you'll be able to answer them. I don't know even what this one actually means. Do you know of the Irma Taijeta Treaty from September 1st?
I think that's something to do with the Pleiades. I get to.
Yeah.
I don't know too much about that. No.
Okay. And
No.
then the other ones that do you get to see your son, which I think you already answered in meditation and the think tank.
He's here all the time. I can't get rid of him. I mean, yeah, this brings more poignancy to when the Mandalorian came out, and I had just started watching Star Wars. I'd never seen. It took me 40 years plus to watch the original Star Wars. This is back in 2022. And I got onto the Mandalorian, and I was like, God, I was rapt. I couldn't stop looking at it. I was like, what is this little dude Grogu? And it's like that, like Mando is like, he can't get rid of the kid. The kid is with me right now. He's like locked onto my body. Like the Draco are after him in some level of timeline. Like the Draco are after him. He needs protection, and he's like he whimpers like he's got this distress call that I'm still trying to learn his language. Like, what do you need? And I
Right.
know my love actually protects him, and so that's part of the soul plan, as I understand it, is me opening my heart to this kid that in some ways I'd rather just get rid of because of how he came about. But anyway, yes, I have ton like more contact than I could want with a child. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you took you that long to watch Star Wars too, because it in a way it's kind of beautiful because you weren't letting that sci-fi like seed your mind with these ideas, right? It
Never.
was
I hated it. My brother and my father were super into sci-fi, and I would like always be like, oh, get that out of here. I don't want anything to do with it. Then in the summer of 22, I was like, maybe I should watch the first Star Wars from 1977.
You know what? That's so great because that's what so many people, they just assume, oh, you're just a huge sci-fi fan and this is all, you're just getting this stuff from that and you're regurgitating it, or or at least you're subconscious and then you're thinking it's your experience, you know. But you just disproved that yourself. You're
No,
like, no, I
no.
wasn't, I hated sci-fi. I didn't even watch Star Wars or anything.
I thought I was not like somebody who ever believed in ETs and all. I would
Right.
all the
There you go.
well, if you would have said I was working as a psychic, you know, in the year whatever 2024, I'd be like, nah, I don't
You're
know.
like,
You know,
what? Right.
I don't believe in that stuff. Oh, well, so yeah.
So yeah, and
There you go.
it's interesting too because what was I gonna say? Um, I don't know what I was gonna say. Oh, maybe the reason that you had a problem, you hated sci-fi was because subconsciously you remembered on some level you knew
Yeah.
like this isn't actually like some fantasy.
Yeah. Well, and when I look at my artwork from my teen years, oh my God, the program stuff is all over it. There's like a cyborg soldier woman thing from like the years when I was starting to really go down into suicide times and I was hospitalized. Like the art that I made then is telling me about the programs.
Right.
Like, far out. Like you can't make this stuff up.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So somebody has a question. What services do you do to provide, or what services do
Yeah,
you provide?
yeah. Yeah, Akashic readings and soul counselor are kind of my premier thing. I offer session packages with that if you really want to make a deep dive transformative journey. You know, you can book one session or many with me. I do inner child work, quantum healing, galactic attunements, starseed coaching, past life readings. You can go to my website and check it out. There's a lot there. Light language channeling sessions for people and so on and so on. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that I did I think I put it in the description. I might have forgot to, but if not, let me look if that your website's in the description. Nope, I didn't. Meant to and I forgot, but we can add it. Rebecca
It's
Rose Barfoot.
yeah, RebeccaRoseBarfoot.com.
Okay. And all right, what else? How old are we in terms of how old are we in terms of reincarnation in general? I don't know if I don't know if
Talking about like soul age.
I think soul maybe is meant by soul age or like how do we quantify the years of how we are ourself?
Right.
That's a tricky one.
That's a
Uh
tricky one. Right.
yeah, I mean I would say, you know, and I'm gonna give people a little bit of a slippery answer on this, but we're as old as time and beyond time, and we're old as creation in a way. We're fractals of
Yeah.
source. We're on and on and on forever. I mean, that's not going to be a really satisfying answer to the 3D mind. Sorry to the questioner. But we, you know, me and you, Tyler and Aaron, all of us here in this body, this isn't our first rodeo. Like we've been here before.
Oh
So,
yeah.
and that's hopeful in that we have such a wellspring of knowledge within us that we have to bring to the fore. It's in our cellular memory, it's in our DNA, it's in us collectively. And when we look at that resource, that's also infinite, and it's what gets us out of this quagmire of, you know, the cancer you saw in your, you know, mushroom journey, you know,
Hmm.
Tyler. It helps us move beyond that. So
Right. Right. And like I said, we've lived like I agree, we're all as old as time, right? And however this whole universe was birthed, like we were part of that process. And whenever I research, Aaron can probably say the same thing, whenever we get into some of these deep dark rabbit holes and stuff, it's so there's this level, there's a shock value that is not there for me. And I'm like, am I that desensitized? What's going on here? But I really sat with it because people were wondering like how do you like cover all this stuff and like just handle it? And I said that's a good question. So I sat with it and realized like fundamentally on some level like I already knew it all. Like it's not like, so when I heard about trafficking for the first time, it's like that soul memory came back. It wasn't like I wasn't like shocked like, oh my God, I can't believe it never occurred to me this was happening. I was like, oh yeah, that's happening. And it was just like the whole awakening process for me has just been constant reminders
yeah.
that of what we already know. I know I kind of said that earlier, but
Well, it's true. And I feel like
Yeah.
that's what I tell, it's the iteration of what I tell clients in session. Like, I'm just helping you, be guided back to what is already in you. That's all. It's
Right.
already just waking it up
Because
a little bit. Yeah.
on the highest level, everything is within you. Because that's, like you
Oh,
said, we're all connected to source itself. We all are that, just like experiencing it. So
Right.
the whole multiverse, all of creation, all of everything is within you. So that means all the answers are within you, but you have to figure out how to tap into that.
yeah.
And that means so time doesn't even exist, really. It's an experience, because the soul doesn't exist in time. The soul experiences time, but
Yeah.
that's why, like, past lives is kind of a misnomer. It should be
Right.
like
There are things that are happening.
parallel
Yeah, they're
lives, right?
parallel. Like, it's all parallel in a
It's all
way.
happening now. It's all happening in the, yeah,
Yeah.
in the
Well,
zero
and that's why I said uncovering memories from parallel lives. Like it's all happening now.
right,
It's
and
not
future as well. Yeah.
to draw it on paper. It's nearly impossible, right? You can create some diagram to try to explain it, but it's happening now. But there's so many now can be, each finger is now. Each finger is a different life. It's
Right.
all here, but
It's
it's
a
right
different
now,
version of the now, I guess, is a way
right?
to, yeah.
So there's my diagram. Um,
Keeping it simple.
yeah.
Yeah. Right.
What else we have? Oh shit, I didn't know this was live. That's from Lily.
Yes, Lily.
Um, Someone says, "Is it time to wipe all soulless meat suits from the universe?" Hmm. I don't. I think they're wiping themselves. If any, like the machine is going to
Yeah.
consume itself. So that process, all it requires us to do is do what Rebecca said earlier. Just kind of like work on yourself and then like bring that light to wherever you are. And just by the nature of the universe and reality and physics or whatever, you're going to affect your surroundings collectively and, planet wide, I believe.
The way I like to look, the way I like to look at it is anything that exists, it exists because it's serving a purpose.
Exactly. You were
Otherwise it wouldn't exist.
going to say too, that there's a purpose that we may not totally understand with our 3D mind right now.
Mhm.
So the soulless meat suit, like they have a function, like
Right.
there's thing that's going on there that might be beyond the human understanding at the moment.
And the
Right.
second that purpose is done, then they're gonna go away.
They're done. What are they reflecting back to you that you might need, in one
Mhm.
instance. So yeah, like why did I need to go through all this? I think we touched on that at the beginning, and it's something that's allowed my life actually to fully flower. And if I would have kind of turned away from everything, which is natural to do, and you're looking at really painful, difficult material in your own psyche and your own experience that you don't know where to file, it's easy to run away from that rather
Right.
than support it and embrace it. But it's changed my life like exponentially for the better. And ironically, you wouldn't think that how unconventional an awakening path that might be. It's also
Right.
what's allowed me to help other people without having gone down into the proverbial belly of the beast. How could I help others who had experienced similar? Um,
Hmm. Yeah,
we did
and
help with
Yeah.
that.
there's a certain humility that's required to handle this stuff properly in a healthy manner. As far as like, let's just say we're born into a lie, right? Which we are. Like the reality that we're born into is the programmed matrix. It's a lie. It's an illusion. It's an overlay. So it's easier at some point when this stuff starts coming into your awareness. It's easier to run with that lie than face the truth. Always, and no matter what it is, it's always easier to run with a lie. And that even comes down to people who have married themselves. Their identity has become their religion or whatever they have chosen to believe in. Sometimes when they hear contradicting information or information that challenges that, they will not look at it because it's easier to run with the lie they've been telling themselves than to face the truth. Facing the truth sucks. Like
It
it
can, yeah.
ultimately, like it really does in some level, especially when it comes down to the personal journey and like, okay, who am I? Like, and you start like observing your own toxic behavior and start addressing it. Like that's not easy to do, and you have to hold yourself accountable. So that also happens like on a more zoomed out scale as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really beautifully said. And when we
Yeah,
look at,
very well said.
there's so much freedom actually when we kind of let go of all the thingies of our attachments and our identity and how we have constructed this person that moves through the world or has been constructed for us. when we look into the truth beyond space and time and beyond the limited construct of 3D consciousness, there's so much freedom, it can be extremely scary.
It is. We
The
don't know what to do with that.
of enslavement is actually really seductive because we turn our power over to somebody else and they decide what happens, when the inner sovereignty is always here, and that's what we're tasked with unveiling at this point in the trajectory, as far as I can tell. Yeah.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
Freedom
and it,
requires responsibility. Being a slave doesn't.
right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
if
then
you're more afraid of responsibility than you are of being enslaved, you're gonna actually prefer being enslaved.
right.
Right?
You
Isn't
know
it
that
far out? It's that's so profound when you're thinking about it like
It
this. Like,
is.
bam, I just nailed something, you know. Like,
It
geez.
is. It's like, wow, yeah. That makes it really makes a lot make sense with people and how they behave, and
you
they
know
don't want the truth. They want to keep their illusions. Like Tyler said, it's hard. It's
Myself too. Like, I don't want this kid. Will you get him out of here? I can't do anything with him. I'm
right,
busy. Like, I don't
right,
want him.
right.
No,
It's a pain,
no. Thank
right?
you.
Somebody
there's
else take care of it.
it
Right.
reminds me also, like, this is something I think about a lot, and I don't know why I think about it a lot, but the whole concept of people having mentors is really interesting to me, because I know some of the people that have mentors and they won't make a decision without running it by
Mm,
this other person. And a lot of channelers do this as well. Like
yeah.
they'll rely on the entity that they're channeling to make all their like to make
Ooh,
help them make decisions. And I'm like, well,
yeah.
like, and what, at some point that's not healthy anymore, because you're just telling yourselves, I can't make this decision on my own. I need someone else to make it for me. And it's like a lack of trust within yourself,
Right.
I think, is like ultimately what that mentor protege relationship represents. And it might be a great stepping stone for somebody who really is lost, but eventually you got to just recognize that that's all it is a stepping stone. And you have to take that as an opportunity to like step in your own power and be able to make a decision, a life decision or a small decision on your own.
Hmm.
And without, because it is just another form of enslavement otherwise.
Yeah.
You're giving your power away,
Right.
and it's like you can use it like to help, but then like you said, at a certain point it becomes a negative where now you're giving your power away, and you're not taking responsibility for your own self,
Yeah.
essentially. And you're like, no, you tell me what the truth is, you tell me what to do. It's
Yeah.
So
somebody else. Yeah.
we have another question. Being in Alaska wilderness, do you connect with wildlife?
Oh, that's a question
Yeah.
I don't feel. Thank you. Bringing it back to Alaska. Do we mention it? I know my audience is probably here, so people know I live in Alaska. It's about 20 below out here right now. Um, mostly, well, the bears are in hibernation, but I see moose and fox and some martin and these things along the river, particularly some otter once in a while. Yeah, I'm connected to the wildlife and connected to the land, so much so up here. And that's kind of why I moved here, because as somebody that's pretty sensitive to energies, Alaska is just such a breath of fresh air to my system. Yeah, I love it. And I think and I've said this to you guys before, like, I think it's so redolent in the programs where I was like out on Mars or out in the Kuiper Belt or, these big remote wild places, or like my, screen behind me, that are familiar to me from places not on Earth in a way. And that's what we're in right now. Like, we have maybe 3 hours of light every day, and we don't get any direct sunshine. So there's like this quality of space here. But yes, the animal life here is amazing, and caribou and wolverine and all of these things, wolves and things. Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think, like you were mentioning, the Mars colony, the indigenous reptilian tribe, they're connected with the planet. It's the same thing. Like, we have to serve that same purpose, like just being connected and remembering, like, we're one with the planet. And I think we've been so far removed from it that there is no better way to go back home than just connect with nature. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
and so let's read through some of these other comments. Wormholes in the DNA. Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I've heard people talking about that for years now. That like every atom at the center of every atom is a black hole that leads to another universe. Like, essentially, like, we're just like this. It's like it's another way to represent our infinite being, right? Our infinite
Infinite
self.
nature. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Super. Yeah, I've been feeling super called to go within and integrate and hold light in space right now. Ripples out. Plus, we are doing so much work in other dimensions too. That's a great point.
Yeah, good point.
The healing process and removing negative programming from the programs. I haven't listened to the whole interview. I'm super late, so I don't know if that was touched on. Oh, the healing. Okay, so Lily wants to know about the healing process and removing the negative programming from the programs. What was that like for you?
Yeah, yeah, I think that varies from person to person, but for me, it's just been a hard, like a long sort of patient journey with myself, working with, I had, indigenous parents from another lifetime with the Crow people show up back in 2018 who have helped me enormously. Yeah, I just call them mother and father. They've been with me a lot. I mean, I've had a lot of help from off-world in other realities and these things, and working with inner child aspects, all the different child parts, have been massive in my healing process. Um, so there's lots of different pieces to that, but it's over and over, I guess the linchpin or the centrifuge of that would be coming back to face whatever is arising in any given moment. That's my practice on the cushion every morning, every evening. What's alive for you? What do you need? And really learning to show up tenderly. Like if I'm in a place where I feel like I don't know whether I'm activated or going something through something painful, like I can be with that without it kind of overtaking the field of awareness and also getting into deeper layers of the soul's journey, soul retrieval, things that were happened to me in my like the DNA. I was able to change that DNA from my mother's bloodline into eventually became like a white, almost like white dragon. I call it Draco Lyran, but Draco meaning dragon energy from Lyra, which my kid is also now connecting with. And there's something quantum going on with the child from Mars with the reptilian energy, the indigenous reptilians now connecting through me because he was made from my eggs in my body with this genetic inheritance from the white dragon. So what is that going to do to the consciousness of Mars? It's going to up level it. So there's a lot to do with dragon consciousness throughout the planetary spheres in our solar system that are really important and primordial to the awakening of all of this. So as it's just in my own experience as I understand it.
Well, that was a beautiful answer.
Yeah.
And the dragons too, like the dragons have been showing up even for me lately in meditation, and
Really,
they're playing a bigger role right now. And the message I got was like they don't want us to don't forget about us. Like they're here doing so much work
thank
that
you for saying that. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
They're like here helping on a planetary scale in ways we don't understand and we don't see them, so we forget about them, but they're here
Mhm.
maybe in other dimensions, whatever that looks like, right? But they're assisting, they're part of this story also.
Thank you for
Um,
saying that. That's very much what I see too. Yeah, I've talked about that a little bit on my channel, and it's very redolent with the whole energies of Mars thing, Mars being alive and conscious, all the planets being conscious, and the again primordial consciousness, with the human experience and how we're expanding and how creation works, so to speak.
right.
Yeah.
hmm Beautiful. Okay, so here, what else is next? How many lives have you ever perchance managed to differentiate with uncovering memories, be it past or parallel? Okay, so how many have you been able, I think I can reword this. Have you been able to differentiate which memories, if the memories come from different lives or if they're all
Yeah.
just from one life?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because I could feel the body. Like one of my, I don't know if this is a gift, but I can very much be in the body of someone else or something else or a past life or parallel life in a very easy time. Doing that, it's how I journey for clients as being inside of them. That's a little weird, but it's empathy on steroids. So when a certain memory field is opening, I can tell who it or what it belongs to through how it's really almost viscerally coming through me and all the visions I'm giving and the messages corroborate like, oh, that's from that lifetime back in the burning times, or that's from that lifetime with the crow people, or that's from the SSP. It's very much linked up for me. Um,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you for answering that because it does. Like I get memories back and I'm like, wow, like there's either I lived one crazy ass life or I'm like retrieving fragments from different
Yeah.
lifetimes. And go
Yeah.
ahead.
And what I was going to say, sometimes I see in client session that things that we feel are ours, now we're going to go quantum. There's things that belong to the collective that we can attune with if we need to for some reason. Maybe it's part of your bloodline, maybe it's part of something you just need to know about, but if it's collective, it's also personal in a way. So we can make things very like, this is me and mine. I was Christ. Well, maybe you're tapping into Christ consciousness that belongs to all of us. Again, that gets a little slippery. The slope is slippery right there for 3D mind. But yeah, there's a lot to that.
Hmm. Yeah, there's so many people that
Right.
they actually they go into these past life regressions or whatever session it is, and they retrieve memories from a lifetime in the past where they think they are like one of the main key players, right? One of the main characters of this game that we're in. And but so many people, I would say hundreds of people all like are tapping into these lifetimes, and you can't have like 500 Cleopatras, right? At some
Oh,
point we have
Right.
to
Thousand.
reevaluate this.
Yeah.
And okay, what's going on here? So there's like this Akashic blueprint that is accessible whenever we come to this planet, and it might maybe having access to that memory allows us it like climatizes us for the Earth experience,
yeah.
especially if you're a starseed who hasn't been to Earth yet. So you're imprinted with the memories of all the significant events and lifetimes of these major players throughout the history, right?
Yeah.
So whenever you eventually tap into that memory, you're just tapping into this database, this blueprint that was
Yeah.
instilled within you, so you can help it'll help you weather the storm here on this planet. So
Right.
Yeah.
and that's not always the case. Like sometimes people really are remembering a past life as an individual,
Yes.
but it's important to have that awareness.
And the
Yeah.
more in your ego, oh, sorry, it's real quick. The more in your ego you are, the more you're gonna be like, you want to be special, so you pick up on that and you're like, oh my God, yeah, I was Jesus or I was Cleopatra or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you go around telling everybody, because it's like all ego, right? So the more like spiritually mature you are, I think you'll naturally pick up on all of that. Oh yeah, it doesn't mean I was that person in a past life, but in a way we're all the same being because we're
But
all
that inheritance,
one. So
yeah, it belongs to all of us as a
right, it
collective.
belongs to all of us.
Clearly, if a million people are remembering being Christ, that might be a good thing because it's like that Christed energy is really coming through. It's great.
Right.
Hmm.
I want to just have one person experience that.
Right.
Guys, you are great as always. And first time I see Rebecca, and I like you, Rebecca, a lot.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank
we
you.
are Stardust. Yes, yes, yes. Information is energy too. It's available for everyone at a quantum level. Thanks
Yeah.
for this talk. A big hug from Argentina. I love that we get just people from all over the world hopping in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, exactly. Like everything's quantumly available. That's essentially what the Akashic records are.
Yeah.
And and I think that, we have our own keys and codes that unlock our personal records, but then there's the collective records. And we have to be able to differentiate between the two.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Well said. Yeah. So
Um,
here.
okay, so going back to the military side of this is something I wanted to ask you earlier. We still have the military industrial complex in place right now. Like you mentioned earlier, like you'd like to think that there's been a cleanup and the Dulce base isn't operating as it was and in the negative ways that it was. I- how much of this stuff, like, I mean, we have these teenagers and these new recruits and these cadets, everybody entering the military now. And do you think, like, in your opinion, that the stuff that you experienced is still taking place on some level, or are we coming, is that time coming to an end?
I What I keep seeing psychically, because I do ask and want to know about these things, I have a vested interest invested in knowing about that. I feel like I was in a particular cesspool of the programs that were especially dark back around 1980. Um, and then I think technology has become so different than it is like now than it has been then. They're still using people, but it's different now. We have psychotronic weaponry and things that are, beamed in through satellite and like so many other things going. I think the iteration of the programs I was in are different now. I don't know how much hold, I'm curious, like what hold do the Germans still have on things? Is that like a different era now? Or I feel like the Draco are less, they're not the omnipotent power that they were. But that's just my observation from my standpoint here now. I know all there is to know? Absolutely not. And, you got a wobbly, shifty, potentials that we're always looking at. So, but I know that people are still being taken, but I feel like it looks a little bit different. And I see
Right.
that in client sessions too, like the technology is different. And I think the agenda is also a little bit different as humanity shifts. Like how are they pivoting the game to meet the same ends? And are they winning or losing? I think there's
Yep.
more and more white hats coming into the establishment of the military. That's my observation as well. I don't know all there is to know, but it's an observation or what I see psychically. So I think things are shifting more favorably.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, that kind of is what I think a lot of our audience and we collectively are tapping into right now. But it's nice to hear, somebody else tapping into that too. It's more confirmation, and
Yeah,
it's not all gone. There, obviously, we know that, but
yeah, yeah, yeah,
We're on the ascension timeline, if you want to
right.
just put it simply like that.
yeah. I would say
How
so.
that plays out is up to us. How that plays out is so we have the free will to,
What's something I've thought about for a while, and my question was answered when I watched the Halo series on Paramount Plus,
Hmm.
which is very much disclosure of the secret space program,
Oh yeah.
like on a crazy level.
Yeah.
But so in I always thought like, why do they need us? Why can't they just like breed some clone army, right? And like and why do they
Yeah.
need us? And then I was watching Halo, and the way they abducted the super soldiers into the programs in that show is so they brought him in at like age 10 or whatever it was, to the Navy. It was a faction of the Navy, but they needed his, what they call front altar. They needed him because of whatever special skill set that his soul contained. It could not be transferred into a clone. It needed to be him, like the host, right? So what they did in the program was they brought him into the program and they replaced him with a clone to live out. The clone grew up with the family on the planet he was taken from.
Yeah,
And the
yeah,
parents didn't know that their son was replaced with a clone. So the real dude went into the program and they explained they needed him. They not a clone, not a copy. And because of something he particularly had access to as far as like an ancient technology or something.
yeah,
So,
absolutely. That I had gone through a time where I was really asking, like, I was in the sort of like why me stage of my journey, like, why couldn't this have happened a different way, or so? And it's like they want, or why did they keep so much of my humanity or humanity as a woman, as a super soldier? Don't you want a bunch of big hulky dudes or what? They want the psychic attributes. If they really weaponize you and they make you into total AI, tech they completely wipe out your biology and all of this and your humanity, they're going to lose something that they really need. They can't do it all with AI.
yeah,
That's the
exactly.
problem.
Exactly.
You,
Exactly.
they're gonna lose something that they really need. That sums it up. Yeah, perfectly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but
So
that
hopefully
show,
that's a good thing to hear for people who recognize like our humanity is our greatest asset. We need that intact right now, and that includes our hearts and our love. So that's
yeah,
huge.
right, absolutely.
Right.
We don't have any more questions right now, so we're coming up on an hour and a half. I guess maybe we could start wrapping this up. Let
Yeah.
everybody know once again where they can find you and how they can book a session. And I had one session with you in the past, and it was great, but we unpacked a lot of trauma, which was necessary. So you never know what you're getting into whenever you sign up to get your memories back or when you want to dig deeper. And so just, use caution and just be prepared that anything can come up and it could, sidetrack you, could sideline you. It might be a plot twist in your life, but if you're ready to uncover this stuff, Rebecca's a great source to do that and
And you
help.
can also come if you're just looking for help on the soul path or you want to unpack something specific, like we're not going to hand you like a hammer on the head with some horrible thing necessarily. It just depends where you are on the journey, and your soul is definitely part of the the way those sessions work is predicated on the needs of the higher self and the soul, as well as your personal inquiry at the moment. If people want to know more about the real particulars of all of this start to finish, check out my YouTube, the Bringing Light to the Darkness series. I don't know if you guys could link that, or maybe my Telegram. People can find me there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll link it. We'll put it in the description.
I had every intention on throwing all your links in here, and then I
It's okay.
got sidelined.
We'll get it though.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. If anybody wants to jump on, I'm in live teaching a free solstice bonus class, Abundance, Awakening, and Beyond, in half an hour. You can go to my website and get the link there if you want to have more of me.
Say-
It's gonna be a full house.
Say that one more time. So in 30 minutes on your channel, you're doing what? A soul
Yeah,
what?
I've got a live Zoom call coming up. I've been teaching courses and classes, and this is just a freebie bonus for solstice that I want to give to people for an hour and a half. Like, come, we'll do some meditation, do some teachings, and have a big channeled journey at the end and just get together. I feel like there's a potency in small groups coming together with open hearts, broad minds, big visions to help the trajectory of the planet right now. So I'm just holding some space for that. I have a live class, next 10-week live course starts January 16th with me. So yeah.
Great. Well, that sounds amazing. And
Yeah.
if anyone's listening to this and they're interested, we'll make sure to throw the link in the description below before that. So as soon as we're done here, so it's available. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a lot of fun. Great
Yeah.
conversation as always. I didn't know exactly where it was going to go, but I think we said everything that needed to be said today. And Aaron, did you have any last words, Aaron?
No, just thank you so much. It's so great having you on again. And yeah.
Yeah. And thank you. And thank everybody in the audience who, for holding space for the ultimate weirdness that we get to in these conversations. But like I said at the beginning, that's part of how the planet is uplifted is with those quintessential open minds, changing our reality.
Yes.
All right,
Yeah.
you guys. Thanks so much.
Yeah, have a great evening. We love you guys. And until next time, actually, really quick, anybody who's still here in the chat, tomorrow night we're going to be on X Spaces. We're doing our second space. Aaron will be with me this time. We're having Patrick Riley, who's going to be speaking at our conference, and Jace from Cosmic Origins. We're going to be having a talk about cryptocurrency and suppressed technologies and how they're connected, and how the blockchain is going to help release a lot of these technologies. And we're going to get into 0 point free energy stuff, and it's going to be a fantastic discussion. So stay tuned for that. It'll be at 7 p.m. Central tomorrow evening over on X. And if you're not following us on X, you can go, I don't even know if we have that link yet, but go over to X and just search Journey to Truth Podcast and you'll find us.
Follow us on X.
Yep.
Yeah, and you'll find it.
Okay. Good night, everybody. We love you. And until next time, have a great evening.
Love you all. Good night, guys. All right, she's out.